What is a nation?
Apa yang dimaksud dengan bangsa?
The attempt to formally define the nation as a political concept dates back to 1882 when French philosopher and historian Ernest Renard published his seminal essay titled, What is a Nation?
What is a nation?
In this essay, Renard defines the nation as a large-scale solidarity constituted by the feeling of sacrifices that one made in the past and of those that one is separated to make in the future. This explains why Renard believes that if we are to imagine the nation as good and worthy of continuous sacrifice, we must realize that it necessarily entails a process of forgetting. This is because, for Renard, the efforts to obtain national unity, either in the name of civic or ethnic nationalism, involve acts of violence and subsequent forgetting. Based on the initial conception of a nation developed by Renard, scholars have come up with a more formal definition of a nation, namely, a community of people formed on the basis of a combination of shared features such as language, history, ethnicity, culture, and territory. Put differently, a nation is the collective identity of a group of people understood as defined by language, history, ethnicity, culture, and territory. And for this reason, a nation is generally more overtly political than an ethnic group. In fact, many scholars considered it as a fully mobilized or institutionalized ethnic group. Later on, the famous political scientist, Benedict Anderson, views the nation as an imagined community. For Anderson, the nation is an imagined political community that is culturally imagined as both inherently limited and sovereign. As we can see, there are four key elements in this definition. First, the nation is imagined simply because members of any particular nation will never meet most of their fellow members, yet in the minds of each lives the image of their communion. Second, the nation is imagined as limited because it has finite, yet sometimes elastic, boundaries, beyond which other nations lie. Third, the nation is imagined as sovereign because the concept of the nation itself was born in an age when the Enlightenment and Revolution were destroying the legitimacy of the divinely ordained, hierarchical dynastic realm. Finally, the nation is imagined as a community because, regardless of the actual inequality and exploitation that may prevail within each, the nation is conceived as a deep, horizontal comradeship.
Syntax is a law of language that determines the word order and basic sentence structure within the different languages. Each language has a specific syntax that tells the speaker and the listener which parts of the sentence come first to help them make sense of what's being said. It's the guidelines we use when speaking and writing so that sentences are understandable and coherent. Be wary of confusing syntax or semantics with diction. These form the backbone of sentence construction, so let's break these definitions down. Syntax, as just mentioned, is the order of the words in a sentence. Diction is the specific word choice meant to express certain meanings. Semantics is the meaning conveyed by the particular words used. We'll be focusing on syntax in this video. In the English language, there's a word order that is set in stone for most types of sentences. Of course, there are always exceptions, but most of the time, standard English sentences will follow an SVO word order. Subject, verb, object. As in, the boy looks outside of the window. In this example sentence, we have the subject, boy, the verb, looks, and the object, outside. This image is an image of an English grammar syntax tree used by linguists to plot the structure of sentences. You may not often encounter a syntax tree, but knowing how to draw one is rather useful and will help you understand sentence structure. In the chart, you can see that the sentence is broken down into its parts: verbs, nouns, articles, and prepositions. After this step, the words are grouped together to determine which parts of the sentence are noun phrases, prepositional phrases, or
Frasa
verb phrases.
preposisi
Fun
atau
fact,
frasa kata kerja.
SVO is not the only word
Faktanya,
order structure.
SVO bukan satu-satunya
Other
struktur
languages
urutan kata.
vary word order
Bahasa lain
and even
memvariasikan
include
urutan kata
additional
dan bahkan
components in their
menyertakan komponen
syntax.
tambahan
In the
dalam
example
sintaksnya.
given
Dalam
with the
contoh yang
syntax
diberikan
tree,
dengan
the
format
subject
sintaksis,
is cat,
subjeknya
the
adalah
verb
kucing,
is
kata
sat,
kerjanya
and
adalah
the
duduk,
object
dan
is
objeknya adalah
mat.
mat.
The second picture is
Gambar
another
keduanya
way
adalah
in which
cara lain untuk
syntax
menuliskan
can be written
sintaks.
out.
Diagram
This
ini
diagram
mengambil kalimat
takes the
anjing
sentence, the
dicintai oleh
dog
gadis
loved
itu,
the
dan
girl. It
memecahnya
breaks
menjadi
it down
artikel,
into
kata
articles,
benda, frasa
nouns,
kata benda, dan
verbs,
frasa
noun
kata kerja
phrases,
seperti contoh
and
sebelumnya.
verb phrases, just like
Dalam
the
kalimat ini
previous
subjeknya
example.
adalah anjing,
In this sentence,
verbanya
the
adalah
subject
dicintai,
is
dan
dog,
objeknya oleh
the verb
gadis.
is loved, and the object
Sekali lagi,
is
pohon
girl.
sintaks tidak untuk
Again, the
mengintimidasi,
syntax
tetapi
trees
digunakan
are
untuk
not
lebih
to be
memahami
intimidating,
struktur
but are
kalimat dan
used to
untuk
better
mengungkapkan
understand
tujuan
the
masing-masing
structure
bagian
of a
dalam
sentence
kalimat.
and
Dan
to
penggunaan
reveal
tambahan untuk
each
pohon
part's
sintaks adalah
purpose
bahwa
within the
setiap
sentence.
kali urutan kata yang
An
berbeda
additional use for
digunakan untuk
syntax trees
kalimat
is
dapat
that whenever a different
didekode
word
dengan
order is
menampakkannya
used for a
seperti contoh di
sentence,
atas.
it can be decoded. For example, if you are hearing
Misalnya,
a sentence in a foreign
jika
language
terdengar
that
kalimat
follows a
dalam bahasa asing yang
VSO
mengikuti
order or some other
urutan
variation,
VSO atau
creating
variasi
a
lain, membuat
syntax
pohon
tree
sintaks
for
untuk
that
kalimat
sentence
tersebut
can
dapat
help you
membantu
to
Anda
put the
menempatkan
words in
kata-kata urutan
SVO order so that you
SVO
might
sehingga
understand
Anda dapat
what's being
memahami apa
said.
yang dikatakan.
Let's have a recap.
Mari kita
1.
rekap.
Syntax is
Sintaksis
the
adalah
sentence
struktur kalimat.
structure.
Diksi
2.
adalah pemilihan
Diction is the
kata-kata
choosing
untuk
of
menghubungkan
words to
suatu makna
relate a
tertentu.
certain meaning. 3.
Semantik adalah makna yang
Semantics is the
diekspresikan dari
meaning that is
kata-kata yang digunakan.
expressed from the
Pohon
words
sintaksis
used.
adalah alat grafik
4.
yang rapi untuk
Syntax
memetakan
trees
struktur
are a
kalimat
neat
dan
graphing
memahami
tool to
urutan
chart
kata dan
sentence
bagaimana
structure
fungsinya dalam
and make
dunia
sense
bahasa
of
Inggris.
word order and how it's functioning in the world of English.
Terima kasih telah
Thanks for
bergabung
joining
dengan
us
kami
for
dalam
this
tutorial
syntax
sintaks ini.
tutorial. If
Jika
you
Anda
found
merasa
this video to be
bermanfaat,
helpful,
periksa
check out the
catatan
rest of our
kami
channel
lainnya
for
untuk belajar.
additional help. See you guys next time.
For almost a decade, scientists chased the source of a deadly new virus through China's tallest mountains and most isolated caverns. They finally found it here, in the bats of Shitao Cave. The virus in question was a coronavirus that caused an epidemic of severe acute respiratory syndrome, or SARS, in 2003. Coronaviruses are a group of viruses covered in little protein spikes that look like a crown, or corona in Latin. There are hundreds of known coronaviruses. 7 of them infect humans and can cause disease. The coronavirus SARS-CoV causes SARS, MERS-CoV causes MERS, and SARS-CoV-2 causes the disease COVID-19. Of the 7 human coronaviruses, 4 cause colds, mild, highly contagious infections of the nose and throat. 2 infect the lungs and cause much more severe illnesses. The 7th, which causes COVID-19, has features of each. It spreads easily, but can severely impact the lungs. When an infected person coughs, droplets containing the virus spray out. The virus can infect a new person when the droplets enter their nose or mouth. Coronaviruses transmit best in enclosed spaces, where people are close together. Cold weather keeps their delicate casing from drying out, enabling the virus to survive for longer between hosts, while UV exposure from sunlight may damage it. These seasonal variations matter more for established viruses, but because no one is yet immune to a new virus, it has so many potential hosts that it doesn't need ideal conditions to spread. In the body, the protein spikes embed in the host cells and fuse with them, enabling the virus to hijack the host cell's machinery to replicate its own genes. Coronaviruses store their genes on RNA. All viruses are either RNA viruses or DNA viruses. RNA viruses tend to be smaller, with fewer genes, meaning they infect many hosts and replicate quickly in those hosts. In general, RNA viruses don't have a proofreading mechanism, whereas DNA viruses do. So when an RNA virus replicates, it's much more likely to have mistakes called mutations. Many of these mutations are useless or even harmful, but some make the virus better suited for certain environments, like a new host species. Epidemics often occur when a virus jumps from animals to humans. This is true of the RNA viruses that caused the Ebola, Zika, and SARS epidemics and the COVID-19 pandemic. Once in humans, The virus still mutates, usually not enough to create a new virus, but enough to create variations or strains of the original one. Coronaviruses have a few key differences from most RNA viruses. They're some of the largest, meaning they have the most genes. That creates more opportunity for harmful mutations. To counteract this risk, coronaviruses have a unique feature, an enzyme that checks for replication errors and corrects mistakes. This makes coronaviruses much more stable, with a slower mutation rate than other RNA viruses. While this may sound formidable, the slow mutation rate is actually a promising sign when it comes to disarming them. After an infection, our immune systems can recognize germs and destroy them more quickly if they infect us again, so they don't make us sick. But mutations can make a virus less recognizable to our immune systems and therefore more difficult to fight off. They can also make antiviral drugs and vaccines less effective because they're tailored very specifically to a virus. That's why we need a new flu vaccine every year. The influenza virus mutates so quickly that new strains pop up constantly. The slower mutation rate of coronaviruses means our immune systems, drugs, and vaccines might be able to recognize them for longer after infection, and therefore protect us better. Still, we don't know how long our bodies remain immune to different coronaviruses. There's never been an approved treatment or vaccine for a coronavirus. We haven't focused on treating the ones that cause colds, and though scientists began developing treatments for SARS and MERS, the epidemics ended before those treatments completed clinical trials. As we continue to encroach on other animals' habitats, some scientists say a new coronavirus jumping to humans is inevitable. But if we investigate these unknowns, it doesn't have to be devastating. Students and teachers all over the world did their part to help slow the spread of COVID-19 by staying home. But what about their graduation ceremonies? Learn more about TED's global campaign to celebrate and elevate the hopes and ideas of an entire generation. Get involved at ted.com/graduation.